Good afternoon, grade 11. How are you today? Today, inshallah, we will start a new reading passage. It is found in your student book, page 68. هلا, in this reading passage, we have 4 different paragraphs. خلينا نقول. All of them discuss the idea of communication, and especially the written one, the written communication. Okay, as we said before, communication is a form or a way of keep in touch or contact or communicate with people. Okay, and we said that blind people have their own way of communication by using Braille system. We also talked about deaf people, and we saw how did they actually use their own language, which is the sign language, in order to communicate with each others. And we also talked about how do people used to communicate in the past through using what? Remember, drum beat, fire. What else? We also talked about drawings, pictures, and then they actually invent the language, the alphabet, and then we have different kinds of communication such as text messages, and all other forms of communication, especially the new one, which is the one that we use actually online. Social media for communicating. All right, you're going to see that in this text particularly, we are going to look at how do animals actually communicate. How do animals communicate, and especially the monkeys or apes or chimpanzee in the first paragraph. Okay, first of all, the first text or the first exercise says, look at the headlines of 4 articles. Headlines, all right, headlines. Here are headlines for these 4 articles. We need to match those headlines with the articles, but first of all, what we need to do is to read the paragraphs together, and then we decide the correct headlines for each of them. Okay. Let's start with the first article. It says, a scientific research project has found that wild chimpanzees, you know, it's a type of monkeys, use at least 66 gestures to communicate with each other. So what kind of communication do chimpanzees use? They use what? Gestures, okay, which is the movement of your body, the waves. When you wave for somebody, waving, when you use your eyes, eye contact, when you nod your head, هدول كلهم سميناهم gestures, and we talked about them last time. Okay, so there is a research. What is the meaning of research? Research means a work done to search for information. A work done to search for information. This work is done or applied on specific kinds of animals اللي هم الchimpanzees. So what is the result? The result says إنه there is at least 66 gestures that chimpanzees use to communicate. Okay, so what is the kind of communication here? What do they use to communicate? They use gestures. After researchers, what do you mean by researchers? Research and researchers اللي هم people who do the research. People who do the research are called researchers. People had spent time with the animals in Borno. They decided 120 hours of video. Sorry, they studied. Okay, let's do it again. After researchers had spent time with the animals in Borno, they studied 120 hours of video they had recorded. So what is the mean of doing this research? Is that they recorded 120 hours of video for the chimpanzees. And how do they use the 66 gestures to communicate? They here refers to researchers. Please write. Write they refers to researchers. They were looking for signs that the animals were using signals to communicate with each other. هلا هون عنا بالgestures they use signs and signals in order to communicate. Okay. They looked to see if the chimps were looking at each other. يعني هم اوكي بيرفعوا ايدهم وبيلوحوا بس do they really mean to communicate? Does this gesture mean we want to communicate? يعني بيكون في عنا إجابة ورد. خلينا نشوف. In order to be sure that the gestures had a purpose. There is a goal behind this gesture. What does it mean? What does it represent? What is the symbol behind this gesture? To communicate something. If the animal didn't reply, didn't say yes to the gesture was made over and over again until there was a response. The results suggest that there is a common system of communication across the species واللي هم الانيمالز. في عندهم system معين بالcommunication واللي هو using the gestures. Okay, here we have this is the first actually paragraph and it talks about the gestures that animals use to communicate. Let's move to the second paragraph B. A postcard sent from Florida has finally reached the destination or its destination in England. It had been posted in 1957. هلا هون في عنا postcard اللي هي بطاقة بريدية. Okay, it has been sent from Florida and يعني from Florida the address is Florida to England and when did this happen? In 1957. Okay, so if I ask you this question, what kind of communication here that is used here? It's the postcard. You write a letter or a postcard and you send it via the mail, the post mail, and then it reaches its destination. Destination يعني the final or the right way. It's right way. يعني it goes from this place to this place. It goes from Florida to England. This is the destination of the postcard. This postcard had been addressed to someone working at an education center. لمين هاي postcard? For someone, okay, and he was actually working in an education center. The building had once been a school. Staff at the education center have been trying to find the addressee. What is the meaning of addressee? Addressee means the person who receives the letter. The person who receives the letter, addressee. The card, which appears to have been written by a grandparent. مين هو الأدرسر؟ grandparent. مين هو الأدرسي؟ هو حدا is working at educational center. Describes a trip to Florida, USA. So what is the purpose or what is the main topic of this postcard? It is actually a description for a trip to Florida, USA. And who writes this postcard? Grandparent. To someone who works in education center. He wrote that it had rained a bit that day, but it was still hot. A spokesperson for the post office said that the postcard had probably been put back in a post box recently. هلا هي لأنها يعني كان هذا education center وبعدين تحول هو كان school بعدين تحول education center فبالتالي they don't know this letter or this postcard is addressed to whom. He said that the mail was never in the sorting office for that length of time. يعني from 1957 recently they received this postcard. This is a very old mean or very old method of communication using postcards and letters. Okay, now let's move to the third paragraph here, and we need to know what kind or what type of communication here. In 2001 CE, a girl called Laura Buxton from Staffordshire, UK, wrote a message with her name and address on a helium-filled balloon. This is the helium-filled balloon. There's a picture here. This is the balloon, and she actually wrote her name and her address, and she actually sent the balloon in the air. So she needs to know who is going to receive this balloon. Okay. So what is the kind of communication here? A message which is written on a balloon. She then sent it. It pronoun refers to the balloon, helium-filled balloon. She then sent it into the air where it disappeared. A few weeks later, the balloon landed nearly 200 kilometers away in southern England. وصل لسouthern England. The man who found it took it to his neighbors, the Buxtons, who had a daughter called Laura. They were surprised to learn that it was from another girl with the same name. تخيلوا إنه كان أول إشي من girl اسمها برضو لورا باكستون، وكانت موجودة ب a city called Staffordshire. When she sent up the balloon, it reaches southern England to another girl with the same name called Laura Buxton. Such a coincidence, right? صدفة. They were surprised to learn that it was from another girl with the same name. Both of them are called Laura, but they live in different sides of the country. The two girls got in touch, يعني they kept communication. ليه؟ لأنه the first girl, Laura number 1, she wrote her address and her phone number. They got in touch with each other, decided to meet, and became best friends. So what kind of communication here? It's a message which is written in a balloon. هلا exercise D, paragraph D, it talks about an artist. Let's see what is the mean of communication that she uses. An artist has kept all her text messages اللي كانوا يوصلوها, text messages. And after 12 years, she had collected about 100,000 messages. تخيلوا قد جمعت 100,000 messages. She kept the first few messages because she enjoyed reading them. She doesn't delete the text messages. No, she kept them. Over again, it was like a personal diary, especially when you have a chat or a conversation with your best friend. You like actually to keep these text messages as a kind of memories or personal diaries. It is also a record of history covering world events. Every time a text message arrived, she saved the contents. المحتوى تبعه, she saved it. يعني she saved the message. She wrote them in notebooks. What did she write? Them refers to the contents. She wrote the contents in notebooks. When her phone ran out of space to store them. Sometimes your phone ran out of space. ما في memory, ما في ذاكرة. So what do you do? What did she do actually? She wrote them in a notebook. She eventually filled more than 60 notebooks. 60 notebooks عبتهم ايش? Text messages. Then she started copying them on her computer. Because she wants actually to save or to enjoy reading her personal diary and her memories. The woman took her collection to a publisher, and the book has now been published and translated into several languages. Wow! بعد ما هي she wrote her memory or her personal diaries on computer, she took them to a publisher علشان ينشروا لها as a book, and she published it and it was translated into several languages. That's really interesting. Fine, let's now go to the headlines and try to connect them with the articles. The first headline says, holiday message is 50 years late. Holiday message is 50 years late. طبعا احنا هنا حكينا عن تأخير الرد للبوست كارد, and this is actually B. This is number B. Because we have a delay for the message to arrive. From mobile messaging to published book. كانوا يجوها text messages على الموبايل, بعدين she changed them into a book. This is D. It talks about this actually event. So number 2 goes with D. Airmail brings best friends together. Airmail, when we talked about the balloon, it was sent to air, and then the two girls become best friend. This is C. The two girls become best friend because of the airmail, which is the balloon. Humans not alone in using sign language. Humans not alone in using sign language. Who other can use sign language? من هاي التكست عرفنا إنه الشمبانزيز والأنيمالز can also use sign language to communicate. They can use sign language to communicate. Okay, now I want you to go to the comprehension section. We basically talked about exercise 1 and exercise 2 اللي هم 4 forms of communication. For today I want you to do number 1, 2, 3, 4 as a homework. So your homework for today is exercise 1 to 5, page 69. Okay, thank you so much, grade 11.